I'm Christie Stringer, and I'm the Director of Product Development for the Great Game of Business. And we help companies implement open book management practices. And so, as part of that, we do coaching, training, events, and we have an online LMS. In the past, it has been a repository of content and a place for people to connect. But looking into the future, we wanted to build something that was more integrated with all the work that we do and help companies not only access our content, but help their employees progress in understanding of the different aspects of the great game of business, financial literacy, and the pieces that make the game really work. And we needed to do something a little bit more in depth than what we have in the past. And so we ventured into the world of Docebo to build something a little bit more hands-on and in-depth. So our previous platform was more one-dimensional than the one that we had chosen to go forward with. And it really was just a library of our assets. And we did have interactive aspects to it, and we had a lot of great content in there, but it was not, we couldn't really structure it. We didn't structure it in a way that was intuitive, and it wasn't really thought out in terms of how people learn and progress. There wasn't content architecture. It was very much just here's a bunch of great stuff. Have fun finding what you need. And so people did get overwhelmed in there. And there also wasn't any insights into how people were learning and progressing with the different competencies that we would expect them to. We really didn't have any competencies even outlined. So it wasn't a planned learning system, but instead just an open library. But yeah, the process that we went through was great. And honestly, it was a process that we never would have done on our own. And primarily because we didn't have the background and experience in the learning development world. We help companies implement practices in their organization, and we lean heavily on our wonderful coaches that go and work with those companies. And they do it with a group of people, and then the learning cascades down. So when we decided to invest in a more robust learning management platform, we were going into it with the same approach of, okay, we have a lot of content, and now we're going to have the backend architecture that will help us see and help the leaders of the organizations that we work with see what their employees were accessing and how they were moving through the courses that we have. But we hadn't really figured out how to structure the whole system to connect to the certain things, the certain ways that people learn, and how to connect the architecture of the system to what it takes to be successful in the great game of business. And
Mhm.
so, in working with Dr. Christie and starting out with our discovery process, that was a great place to start. We learned, we had some great insights through the written survey, the one on one interviews, and the focus groups that were conducted to understand really where learning drops off and what frustrations were with our previous platform, what where the gaps are when people are trying to implement and sustain the great game of business. And so that was a great starting point, and then developing our personas from there to understand the different distinct groups, this different roles that people have in the organizations and how those support the great game of business. And so figuring out what those personas are and the needs of those personas from all of the discovery that we did was a great next step to then think through what content that we have that's appropriate for each of those roles. And then mapping out our competencies, our top 10 competencies, and the framework for how we want people to learn and grow in the great game of business. And so then we took all of our assets that we have, and currently we have over 225 different assets. So then mapping each of those assets to the different competencies and figuring out how those fit within the different persona roles that we identified, which then was a great step for determining where our gaps are to help us understand where we need to develop more content to ensure that these different roles have everything that they need to progress in the different competencies and serve what we have identified from the discovery that they need to really feel successful in the great game of business. And all of that wrapped in the project management that Dr. Christie provided and keeping us on track and moving forward and hitting deadlines, because having the whole picture that we didn't fully grasp from the very beginning because we didn't have that background and understanding was really helpful to keep us moving and keep the project on target so that we will now be ready for our full rollout this summer. Yeah, the impact of working with Dr. Christie has been more than we could have imagined, because really when we started the project, we didn't fully understand all that we didn't understand. And the expertise and the background and experience that Dr. Christie has provided has been has been extremely helpful, helping us to see around corners that we didn't previously know were there, more fully think through the pieces of the whole platform and how to architect all of the different pieces of what we are building, the insights on what the next step and the next step and a year down the road and 5 years down the road has been really helpful to keep us grounded in thinking long term and planning for the future, and not just looking at what we're doing as something that we can maybe change later, which of course we can, but really understanding what the implications of each of the decisions that we make, that I think is going to serve us well in the future. And along those lines, just the governance of how we think about continuing to build the platform. She's helped us really think about the long term implications of all the decisions that we're making now. Yes. Okay. So when we embarked on this project, we really are thinking about the LMS as a big piece, a big growth piece of the future of our company. And
Mhm.
so we knew we wanted to do it right from the beginning. And we realized that we did need some help to think through it. And we looked around at different people and companies that do help think through building LMSs and people that had background in Docebo, our chosen platform. And we talked to several people, but we're really impressed with Dr. Christie right from the beginning, from her background and experience, but then also spoke to some of her past clients who just raved about the support that she gave them and what we're experiencing now. Just that, wow, we didn't know what we didn't know. And thank goodness that we had Dr. Christie right from the very beginning. And so we've been very pleased with our decision and honestly don't know how we could have gotten to where we are now if we hadn't been working with her. One other thing that we were really thankful for Dr. Christie for is helping to keep us focused because we have a lot of ideas. We're idea people and we're constantly coming up with things and want to go one direction and another direction. And Dr. Christie has really helped to keep us focused and help us pace properly instead of trying to do too much too soon. Or on the other side, other priorities kind of get in the way. And so she was really good at keeping us on task, not moving too fast, not moving too slow. And that has been really valuable in our project. I think the only thing that I wish we could have had in the beginning, but I'm not sure exactly how to do it, is if we could have had a better understanding of what we were building towards, that we were just moving in faith
Mhm.
and knowing Dr. Christie definitely inspired our confidence. And so we we didn't have any problem just following. But I think to the point we are now, especially most recently in talking about the secondary landing page for each persona, I don't think we had a good sense of how it was all going to come together. And I
Mhm.
think finally we can see it. Yeah, I would absolutely recommend Dr. Christie and everything that she can provide in building out an LMS. The process was smooth and her roadmap for us was excellent. The experience of working with her on a regular basis was wonderful, and everything that she brought to the project just elevated and improved everything that we did. And what we have built is so much more than what we could have done on our own.